Oh, you did this thumbnail down?
Yeah. Well, you're over there doing
I like that t-shirt. I've got it. Old friend of mine I used to have got it for me. Back in the day, we were close.
Yeah, I had a friend too that used to bring me gifts. We called the one the last 2 times. Nothing.
There's nothing new. I started bringing you like a big agate dildo. I mean, what else do you think? It's the same thing. Yeah, no kidding. I always start
I'm
this.
sure they have one made of obsidian
Right.
or mica.
Flint. You could like catch your bush on fire.
That would not be good.
Just with friction. Hello, YouTube. You can hear the stuff that happens behind the scenes here. Wade
We're
Carter.
at 40 seconds.
More. Give it
No,
more
it's
power.
where it needs to be.
Right. Horizontals, right? I like that one.
Horizontal mambo.
It's 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I know.
Today's weather, folks, give you a heads up. 37 degrees in Victoria, heading to a high today of only 61 under sunny skies.
Here goes.
It's like the middle of summer in Calgary. Here goes. Week talk. Congress, week talk. Republic under siege. All this and more. Wade Carter Show.
Congressman Michael Cloud joins us in studio. There's no healing on the left. NFL playoffs kick off this weekend. All that and more coming up on today's Wade and Carter Show.
Show. Show.
And hopefully the equipment's working.
That's what I said on my honeymoon. Hopefully the equipment's working.
You said that on more than your honeymoon.
3 times a week.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, Mama. Good
How are you?
Good morning, sir.
I feel like I'm standing next to the abominable snowman.
You
or
remember
something.
that. Howie Long. You were there as Doug Flutie.
A black vest does not conjure up any images of Howie
What
Long.
about Michael Strahan?
No, I'm thinking Michelin Man,
Careful. Are you having
Ghostbusters type. Of,
Flashbacks?
yes, that's kind of where I'm going with that puffy vest.
Oh, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Let's do this.
The Wade and Carter weather brought to you by the partnership that's not rude to me, the great folks at Deerland Feed. Folks, for everything you need, there is Deerland Feed. Get by
Ag
there.
needs, pet needs, they've got it all.
Deer corn, seeds. They just lead you down the way. Seeds, pesticides, fungicides, things that get rid of rodents, things that get rid of ants, things that make your plants grow.
Things that feed your animals.
They've got everything but medicinal marijuana at Deerland Feed. No weed at Deerland Feed. I'm on. It
Okay.
just doesn't sound good.
No, I don't know what's going on.
I don't know what's going on. This place. At any rate,
Yeah, there you are. You're just not enunciating.
37
Enough.
degrees in Victoria, heading to a high today of 61. This is a typical June day in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. 37 degrees, heading to a high of 61.
Be fair. Early June.
Yes, early. Where's Pete, Montana? We need a Canadian perspective on what's going on with our republic. I've got nothing. I've got a bag of nothing from Pete.
Well, I'm
I
guessing
think
Pete
this
might
vest
know.
looks pretty sporty
Yeah,
on
I'm just-
Triple X.
Jeremy Pena, first one in this morning. Bobby Leister, Lisa Poole, Lorena
Jeremy?
Bargenbrook.
Hope you're feeling good, Jeremy. By the way,
Iceman is in.
this was a youth sleeping bag.
You cut some holes in it.
A ute sleeping bag. I just cut part of it off at the bottom.
Shorten the zipper.
Sure. Bada bing, bada boom.
Wasn't a mummy bag because there's no hood. Or is
Right.
there?
No, there's no hood. And there's no zip out hood either. How trendy is that? The zip out hood. But this thing is, it's down filled and it's super light. I got this at Dillard's the other day when they were having their
Big sale. Yeah. I didn't see that. I wouldn't have picked it up if I did.
Thank you. Looks good on you though. You're looking good. I've kind of become the vest king. Has the judge checked in? Judge Posey would wear this vest.
Iceman is in. Richard King. Bobby Leister. We've climbed up to 693.
YouTubers.
Chris Conrad, good morning. Says the mics are hot. I think we've got it figured out.
If you were listening to Magic 95.9 before the show, you heard Ash come on and Ash goes, a mic check one. Mic check.
Mic check.
Yeah. That
went old school rapper on you. H.R. Mallory, good morning. Sheriff Louderback is in. There's Judge Posey. Terry Murray.
Just stop right there.
Okay.
You got H.R. Mallory, a DPS trooper, highly regarded. Right under that, 75-time elected A.J. Louderback, Sheriff of Jackson County. Right under that, Judge Posey, who forever was county judge of Victoria County. I mean, folks, this is an elite group. Thank you, gentlemen.
The
it just happens to be men. Could have been women. Just happens to be. It could be a man, a woman. I know I'm a moron. We've got that going on. But thank you, folks, for spending your mornings with us. We don't ever take that lightly. We try to entertain, enlighten a little bit, make you laugh,
inform.
Bring
perspective.
And doing that today, very fortunate to have Congressman Michael Cloud's going to be here in studio. We'll put the camera on him, kind of gives y'all a break from looking at my sleeping bag.
Terry Murray checking in. I think she checked in with every one of our equipment tests this morning.
Check. Good morning, T-Lad. I know you're out there. Mike Blosky says good morning.
Beautiful wife Cheryl's checking in. Lisa Poole, good morning. Mike Blosky.
Cheryl's waking up.
Patrick Strauss, Matt Boucher.
Yeah, good deal.
Chris Ray Brissett.
Dawn says I'm very in style, Ash, while you're wearing
No, she says the vests are in style. You're not.
Yeah, right.
I'm just making the distinction of what she said. I don't want to be labeled as false, as fake news.
Don't worry. When you pass and we hold you lying in state by then at the University of Houston Carter Curling Center, I will walk by and mumble something about he looks so natural.
Please do.
That's what I'll do. Cheryl will be there, of course, with a date at your wake. She'll bring a date.
I've ruined her for relationships.
Cheryl,
not for all the reasons you might think. She's so tired of having somebody around because of me. She's not ever going to get married.
Cheryl will phone in a statement to the crowd from Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah.
No, but Cheryl will be there with the pool boy, just saying, I don't think I should be alone right now. I just don't think I should be alone. Ash has passed. I shouldn't be alone. This is Frederico. He's from Puerto Vallarta.
Morning, Bobcat Watley, Justin Glass, Randy Langston's in. Jeremy Pena says he's feeling much better. Good to hear. Checked in with him the other day.
Him a Spanish infusion. How about
Monica Jost, J. Mark Jameson, Scott Snow? Who else is in? Just Posey says he has one or two almost just like it, Brent.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. James Kurth is in. Karen Webb. But there was Chris Ray Brissett said something here. Can we just wake up from this Biden nightmare, please?
Oh, folks.
Jumping off point.
It's a good spot to demarcate and talk about just what a nightmare we're heading into. I don't know. You read stuff, and I mean, Donnie got a notice yesterday that the emergency broadcast system had implored all of their member stations be on standby. You don't know when you're going to have to,
They send that out regularly.
I didn't know that.
So
you couldn't make, when we've all talked about, you see those movies and you end up giggling because you think about something in a way you would have never thought of it. If I would have told you that Donald Trump would have gotten elected president and that we would have the words coup and siege and threats to the republic, and that you would have Joe Biden after 47 years being the poster child of the DC swamp, who more than reputed, is basically now saying, yeah, I told Ukraine that. Well, yeah, my son made $18 million. Well, yeah, I got a relationship with China, and nobody seems to care.
Well, because he never admitted he had a relationship with China.
but there's almost no doubt he does. Very concerning. Very, very. Don got a notice yesterday. It looked official enough that the Republic of China had sent a note saying, we've got 250,000 peacekeeping troops if you need them at your inauguration. How embarrassing. Even if it's not true. Even if it's not true, it's embarrassing.
Even if it's not true.
Right. Even if it's fake news.
I have a feeling China does that often to try to not save face, but it's all part of their propaganda effort internally.
I thought maybe
to
they
make
were
it seem like
we don't have these problems.
Well,
you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a way, think about it from their perspective as propagandists, right? They can send that out. They can tell their people they offered it, but the bad American enemy wouldn't accept it.
Well, James Kerr says the big question now for Congressman Cloud now today is, are we ready for term limits? My other question is, do we being Republicans, I'm going to throw myself into that melee. Do we move forward seeking to heal somehow, or do we fall into the Me Too trap and find a way to impeach? No, yeah, I'm going to quit my job and wait for the next stimulus. Do we find a way to impeach Biden? Do we find a way to mess up everything they're trying to do through?
Well, we can't. We don't have the House. We don't have the Senate. So it would never happen.
It's interesting, isn't it? I wonder if people are really comfortable with a one-party government that really just wants to take from you and redistribute some back to you and the rest of foreign governments.
Well,
and then to themselves.
We've had one-party governments a lot of times when the one party controls all chambers in the presidency. We had it for the first 2 years of President Trump's term, and the problem was
they didn't get much done. Did they?
No, they got absolutely nothing done. You want to know why
Well,
the midterm elections were lost, and probably why we're in a position now where Joe Biden somehow third time's the charm, and he magically conjures up more votes than anybody ever in the history of popular politics. You could go back to those first 2 years of the Trump term when Paul Ryan and other rhinos and swamp creatures did everything they could do.
Did you change?
No, I didn't do anything. But they did everything they could do to not get anything done. They didn't want.
See if that helps.
So, you know,
see,
I mean that not that was the start of this, because the divisiveness was long before Donald Trump. You could argue, you could probably make a case that it went back to "if I had a son" statement from the previous president.
Right.
And you could maybe even say it went back even further. You know, I got into an interesting conversation that, you know, somebody asked, when did we become a third world government with everything that was going on? And I said, well, technically, probably going back to the Harding administration when he was caught pilfering money, and
yeah, absolutely.
You know, LBJ fixing elections and Joe Kennedy fixing elections. Power has corrupted people for a very long time in this country, and I think we're seeing it really play out this election cycle.
I like the way that you just – there's nobody there, is there?
Got to finish the thought. Good morning, Wade and Carter. Hello. Ooh, that's hot. Pete, Montana?
Pete! Pete, I didn't recognize your voice at 4:15 in the morning in Canada. I'm sorry, sir. Thank you for calling us. Well, what we wanted, I told Ash yesterday, day before yesterday, when we first tried to reach out. I'm hoping you folks out there can hear our friend Pete, Montana, calling from the great Pacific Northwest, the most remote western part of Canada. My comment to Ash was, with all the lunacy going on in the U.S., We need Pete to call in for the Canadian apology. We need you to explain to us and then apologize for everything that's going on, because somebody's got to fix this. And nothing fixes a problem like a good Canadian apology.
And Americans don't apologize.
Americans don't apologize. So.
We're getting some feedback. There's a loop or
Pete,
something.
you think Pete's got
Pete's
his radio up?
Okay.
Marty, my mother-in-law says she can hear you, so that's
Which is good.
So talk to Ash. Y'all do that Canadian deal where y'all rub rings and talk about hockey and all that for a second. Let's see what's going on. And that's a big deal, right? I mean, seriously, that resonated around Canada, and because I'll tell you, sadly, it wasn't news here. It just, I mean, Ash brought it to my attention. I didn't see it on any of the big outlets. It's kind of sad to me that these kids are, this is like the AAA championship in baseball, and nobody seems to notice. Although we don't notice that either. Wow. Which tells you a lot of what there is to do in Finland besides drink. I mean,
They did both. They were drinking and watching hockey.
For those of you that don't know,
and that game was on early in the morning in Finland.
Besides being Ash's friend and mentor and a radio guru in the Pacific Northwest, Pete is also the king of the softball. And he just lobbed that out there like, bump. That's all we talk about in Canada. Wow, that's an exciting Christmas. Hey, who's going to win the Canadian Junior? Hey, pass the Jameson.
You're sounding like a Canadian,
right?
Except Canadians never ask that question. We just assume we're going to win it. The question is more like, who's going to challenge Canada this year? That's the question.
Now, when you watched, did you see any can't miss NHL type talent? Wow, now that is big time.
Yeah, and I was impressed all tournament with Dylan Cousins. I thought Cole Caulfield from the U.S. had a pretty good tournament. The U.S. goalie, is it Knight or McKnight? I can't remember his name. Knight started off a little shakily, but I thought he got better as the tournament wore on. The one guy that did not impress me from the Canadian side was Byfield, or was that his name? The second round pick for LA this last draft. Did not impress me. He was kind of invisible out there the entire tournament, except for the game against Switzerland in which he got 6 points. But other than that,
he's like James Harden.
Kind of did nothing.
He's like James Harden in the NBA. He's kind of invisible when you need him.
So. Yeah, wow. Still in high school.
It's like, hey, kids, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. And there were a few NHL teams that wouldn't let their top prospects go play because they're expecting them to be on the roster in a week. And
one of our listeners said, how many players are in the NHL? So it's similar to Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the 1% total of those that play pro hockey at any level. So
the average American, if you said name, and I'm being sincere, the average American, if you said name a hockey player, 60% of them could not.
And the other 40 would say Wayne Gretzky.
That's a true story. That's an absolute truism.
So Pete, your view from above the 49th parallel as to what went on in this country the other day. What's your take on it? What's the big takeaway up north?
Right. Right. Yeah, I noticed that he didn't mention Joe Biden. He did talk about a transition to a new administration. There's lots of Americans that are musing that he's talking about a new administration with him at the top. Our comment, Pete, has been that utter chaos, carnage in the streets is better than Trudeau. That's where we've been down here as Americans. It's like, it could be worse, could have Trudeau, so we got that going for us. Don't say anything, Pete. Don't say anything. You work on a government-owned radio station. Be very careful. Right. He's a little flighty, isn't he? Like, you don't know what he's going to do.
Well,
right. A little interesting perspective, right?
Yeah.
Something nobody here has said that. I think it's very refreshing. Yeah, Trump was the guy that you might wake up one morning and Trump would say, I'm not happy with Hawaii, and this morning I launched a nuclear attack on those people. I mean, he's that guy. We just go, yeah, we only have 49 states.
I was never worried about that, but it's very interesting to me that North Korea during the entire Donald Trump presidency did not reconvene their state assembly or whatever they call it,
communist
little party get together until this week.
Yeah, they're sending a message to Biden. We're back to business as usual. What are you going to do?
Iran starts enriching uranium this week. They hadn't done that in 4 years. I mean, there's just a lot of things that are starting to, at least from my perspective, and believe what you want about Donald Trump, the countries that were problematic prior to him being elected president 4 years ago,
they kind of stood down.
They stood down for the last 4 years, and now they're starting to do some things that, at least from my perspective, tell me that this will be a big test for Joe Biden on the international scene.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of these countries, Peter, they're like children. They want to push the envelope and see what they can get away with.
Because of the Wade and Carter show.
Right, and you're a good guy. You're a good guy, and because of us. Sorry. Right. I can see that.
Yeah. And there are a lot of Americans, though, that don't like that back to normal because they know there's if there was anything that was really eye-opening with this presidency for me was, I think, how much power and how much corruption exists in Washington, D.C. on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, he's a little narcissistic.
Well, but he doesn't leave the office until January 20th. There's no should have, because that's the last day. So that's a little misconception maybe that Canadians have, because the transition doesn't actually occur until the 20th.
What is your take, or what do you think the average Canadian thinks about the integrity of our voting system? Right. Oh, I believe that. Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe that.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I think that's reflective of
The
you know,
ignorance of our country.
the ignorance of our country, but also I think the importance that one country plays in the geopolitical world as opposed to the other. I mean, that's an honest assessment from a Canadian who felt the same way you did, Pete, and probably knew more about American geography and politics and history than Americans did. And I learned this when I went to school down here. But then when you get down here and you actually look at, you become a little more, I've become a little more educated to see that, well, yeah, the U.S. actually does play a larger role in world politics than I thought they did prior to being exposed down
Well,
here.
Pete, you know where Texas is. and then there's everything else. That's kind of the way we look at it. Yes, sir. I'll tell you this, we really appreciate you taking time to call, and we appreciate you going back and listening to the show, because I know you weren't up at 7 o'clock.
No, he was up yesterday morning listening.
But Pete, I think the thing to do, we've learned here in the country, is you have to have a catchy name. Like, I think the third party is going to be called the Everything's Free Party. If you can have a party called the Everything's Free Party with Amazon Prime included, then all of a sudden you've got people interested.
I've always been partial to BYOB parties myself, so that might be the way to name it.
One of our county judges here just said, I appreciate Pete's perspective. He's obviously knowledgeable, and whatever normal is, I hope he's on the right track. So well done, sir. And thank you for calling us always, and go Canada.
Thank you, Pete. Happy New Year. We'll be in touch before 4 to 5 years, I'm sure.
But goodbye, friend.
Right. Thank you, Pete.
That's Pete Montana, radio, and really a hockey guy. He's a hockey guy.
He's a lot of. He's a hockey guy. He's a rodeo guy.
Did he do some radio mentoring for you too, or were we all hockey friends?
No,
wasn't he the guy that said Ash Junior Hockey? It's not for you, son.
Pretty much, yeah.
You're a little
smart, but he pointed me in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah, you're slow.
See those water bottles?
You don't have a hard shot.
See those water bottles?
Positionally, you're okay, but that's because you're slow.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, that's my BYOB.
Bring your own breath. Thank you.
Tell you what, you don't have to bring your own wrecker service if you need it. You can just call Alan, 578-6300, the number to call.
Contrived.
Trying.
You're good, though. 578-6300, that's Alan's wrecker service. Yesterday, Dawn and I went to Uncle Mudd's. Now, I'm going to tell you what we did, and you tried it.
What'd you do?
We had a three meat plate, double brisket and turkey with double green beans. And of course, I had a small side of
pea salad.
Oh my goodness. 2 iced teas, right at $20. Went back, got an extra plate, some sauce on the side, jalapenos, pickles, onions. We split all that.
Let's be honest. There was no splitting all of that. I know the 2 pieces of sausage for Dawn.
She had a
spoon of one side, a spoonful of the other side.
She
and
had a kind bar and a green bean. I ate everything else.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Uncle Mudd's barbecue. When Michael Cloud comes home from D.C., you know that he has his chauffeur take him to Uncle Mudd's barbecue. He doesn't drive himself anymore, does he?
I don't think so.
Somebody's going to drive that. Yeah, somebody's going to drive him around.
Yeah.
in the name
Himself.
of in the name of security.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah. But then you got after Uncle Mutt's. Get down to Chesnick Furniture, 116 West Juan Lynn, Juan Linden Bridge, right downtown.
Yeah, I'm bragging on this beautiful leather sofa and
You want it,
side
don't
chair.
you?
I do. I'm
I bet
in
I
a
can
place
get
for
you
it
a
at the
half
moment.
off.
Yeah,
You want half off?
Yeah, I already negotiated that deal. Thanks.
Wade and Carter.
But I brag about it because it's great styling, kind of retro, kind of contemporary.
The Iceman
Ooh,
says
that's-
Ash towed right into
Yeah,
that
I
paid
kinda
advertisement.
But I'm telling you what, not only that leather sofa, but all sorts of great furniture, recliners,
Appliances.
bedding, appliances, anything you need from your
Accoutrement.
home. It's all there at Chesnick Furniture Company, and all furniture is still 50% off as they now celebrate 101 years.
Now you need to keep an eye on it. You need to keep an eye on it. You need to make sure it's secure. You need to reach out to the VCS companies. Have a state-of-the-art 1080p zoomable. Watch it on an app on your phone. Watch the cameras. Watch who comes and goes. I can see license plates at the end of the cul-de-sac. Not exaggerating. Reach out to the folks at the VCS companies for all your security and surveillance needs. Now more than ever, we live in a crazy world at a crazy time. Yeah, I like it.
I did too.
So what the Iceman says, it's not really a puffy vest. It's just Uncle Mutt's trying to ooze out of my flat vest.
That's what he's saying. I'm saying it. I never said any of that. But
No,
see
he
how
didn't.
people can just make stuff up, put it on the internet, and everybody thinks it's true.
He did not say that.
Thought it, but I didn't say it.
White Trash Services, for years now, the 6-county region, Holiday Beach, Rockport, 550-1826.
For all your trash collection needs in the county, whether it's a weekly collection, a dumpster, a roll-off, any size roll-off. They've got them for all sorts of projects, from cleaning out maybe the attic to a home remodeling job. They
Right.
can provide all that for you.
And they do fantastic work with friendly people. You know, you don't think that you surround yourself with good people. That's what we've done here with our sponsors. Surround yourselves with good people, good things happen. I mean, it's just the Nelsons are a fine family. Always giving back, all of our sponsors are always giving back. They're always in the middle of what's going on in the community. Uncle Mudd's with the Warriors weekend and all that, it's all giving back.
Hatsandoffer.com for all your COVID safe car shopping needs. Log on there and browse the assortment from new to pre-owned.
And you can say, I just want to see the Mazdas.
Yep.
You can say, I just want to see the SUVs. You can say, I just want to see the certified pre-owned vehicles. And they go through a rigorous test to make sure that they're still up to basically new car warranty standards. And then that's a lot of vehicles don't make the cut and they get sent away to other dealerships.
Or if you want to go shop in person, you can stop by Hats and Offer right there on Navarro.
Absolutely. They'll give you a hazmat suit and an oxygen tank. You can walk around the lot.
For all your IT analytic data
Look,
needs,
the congressman's trying not to laugh.
Razor IT
He
Solutions.
almost giggled, but he's thinking of it. There, I got him. We're so proud.
He's
to have
laughing
Mike
at
with
you,
He's
not
laughing
with you.
at me, not with me.
Yes.
And I swear, the first time that he comes in and goes, harumph, he's out of here. He's done. We knew him back when. He was just a local rabble rouser.
He's going to walk in here and go harump so he can go back to
Right,
bed.
he's
It's been
going
such a
back to-
long week.
Why is he in his pajama bottoms? I don't understand. He's got a nice jacket on top. He's in his pajama bottoms. Now, we're very excited to be joined in a few moments here by our congressman and friend,
And yours.
Michael Cloud. Yes, absolutely.
And don't forget Veracruz Restaurant. Today's the last day.
Swatowski doesn't get the
No,
T-shirt.
he doesn't get the T-shirt, but maybe the picture could be a little bit blurred.
Yes, today is the day for you to get to Veracruz. The food's just phenomenal. I guarantee you Michael Cloud eats at Veracruz when he's in town. To have the hot sauce, the queso, the creamy guacamole,
I don't think he can endorse.
the chips. He does. I'm here for all my constituents, especially the Mexican food restaurants. All of them.
It's amazing he stays so thin.
He's got to eat. Well, he walks everywhere. He's got to eat out a
True.
lot.
All those underground tunnels in DC, you can cover a lot of ground in a short time. Well, with no further ado, let's bring
Let's
the
get him
congressman
in
in
here.
because
I mean,
it's important. This has been a big week. I think a historic week.
Yeah, we're gonna. Have a
This will be in
serious
textbooks next year, folks. That's how
Yeah.
historic this week
No,
was.
the left will never allow this to be in textbooks. It will never actually be reported. Get that where you're comfortable. But I'm going to try this for you, sir. Hang on 1 second.
All right, we'll bear with you. So
Bear with me.
Congressman Michael Cloud joining us in studio, and welcome back to Victoria and back to the Wade and Carter Show. Happy New Year to you.
Good morning.
And glad you could make time. I can't imagine how busy and crazy this week was for you. Obviously, with just everything that we saw from our perspective, following it on news channels and media sources.
I saw him in
How are you?
buckskin outfit with his horned helmet on, running through the congressional chambers.
Most
Thought that
important.
that
That was an interesting.
Don't you give me the stink eye. You give me the stink eye.
I don't blame you.
I don't blame you at all, sir.
But first and foremost, how are you?
Doing well. It's been a rough week, for our nation, for sure. It's surreal having been there through it. I have to say, my experiences have been, I had people texting me and, what's going on? And you probably know more than I do, actually. You're for most of the day in rooms that had no windows and no video. And so,
Did they take you to a safe room?
Walk us through that moment
Yeah, just like
when the warning came or what have you. How did that play out? Without getting into details that might tip off some nut job about security at the Capitol.
Well,
or lack
it
thereof.
was on C-SPAN, so most of it was live. But we were in there. We're in the middle of debate. We had gone into debate on Arizona. We had already gone back and forth a few times, and so just talking through an election and having that robust debate that you're supposed to have. So everything's going well, going through the process. And then police came in and escorted, and by then I should say that the Senate and the House had split. So what happens is you're in joint session, and if there's an objection in both the House and Senate, then you split each debate for 2 hours, and then they come back and continue on to the next day. And so we had split. So the vice president and Senate were in the Senate chambers, and we were in the House chambers. And hopefully I'm getting the order right. But the first thing I remember is the police coming in and escorting the speaker and the majority minority leader out, the whip and such. We had kind of heard a little, noise outside, but we knew there was rally going on.
Yeah.
And so.
And there's pretty thick walls in the Capitol. I mean.
Right. So at that point, I'm thinking, okay, that's the presidential line of succession. Okay. Well, and so we tried to proceed and kept kind of moving forward with speeches, and then eventually the police came in and said to lock the doors, and then announced that there had been a breach of the security, that people were in the building, and so we were locking up the building. In the House chambers, underneath all the seats, there were gas masks, and so we were asked to put our gas masks or get them out and get them ready. They're in these self-contained, airtight containers. So we did that, and then
under all the Republican seats, there's also a Glock 19, but under the Democrat seats, there's a flower.
We got to the point where we're in the House chambers, and obviously the doors there, and they had been locked, but they were banging on the doors to get in, and so we were evacuated. Spent most of the day there.
Yeah. How scary was that? Or was it?
It was surreal. It was really probably the best way. That sounds so inefficient, or not. But I mean, I personally felt, I was more concerned about what was happening as far as, this is a sad day, as far as our nation. And we were, for the first time, really going to get to hear robust debate. And that was all upended, and just the constitutional process of how things are supposed to run. And so.
Well, that leads me to the thought of you've heard, or maybe you haven't been bombarded with what I think is 99% ignorance. But you hear all of these conspiracy theories and the people that are saying, well, hey, the people that actually breached the Capitol initially were Antifa people. They were plants. They were there to disrupt the process, as opposed to the photos that I saw literally of husbands and wives holding hands, children, listening to the president because it's a historic time.
Right.
Let's all walk down to the Capitol, and then all of a sudden there's a bad element that Trump has basically said, hey, these are not my supporters.
Yeah.
This is, where do you draw the line, and what do you?
Well, and that's what's unfortunate about this is the media in general almost has two preset buckets, and they triage everything into you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. And even the motivations, there's people who voted with me, but for different reasons. There's people who voted against me, but for different reasons. And it's unfortunate that it's that simplistic because, it's really early to tell. And like I said, I spent most of the day in a locked room without video, and then got a little chance in between that and when we were released and reconvened to kind of get touch base. And then yesterday before going on a plane to come here, touch base a little bit. But I did talk to a number of the Capitol Police. First of all, of course, to thank them, but then check and see how everybody was doing. And there were a number of Capitol Police that were roughed up pretty bad.
Yeah, I saw a video of one female officer at the very first barricade when it was breached, and she got beat up pretty good.
Yeah, and that is.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah. You try to find a strong enough word because
Un-American.
Yeah, right. It's just it's horrible. It's horrific and shouldn't happen. It's tragic. I also, on the way home, was on a plane. Of course, it happened to be a number of people from the rally, and they're heartbroken as well. The vast majority of them went to, make their case, but to do what our Constitution talks about, to peacefully assemble and air your grievances. And so that's what they were. Most of them, they had no idea what was going on inside the Capitol. They didn't have video screens outside, and so the vast majority of them didn't know. And even talking to the police that were involved and the people that were there who saw some, there's been some video even of people trying to break window. There's one guy trying to break a window, and you see, a guy in a red hat pull him down, and the crowd cheers.
Right.
Because
It was, yeah.
looking to them out. So.
Well, I thought about, I hesitated about whether to reach out.
Hang on, caller.
I knew you were busy, obviously, but I felt like, I got a call and just say, are you okay? And I appreciate it. I shared with a number of people that you sent back, thanks for reaching out. We're fine. My family's at home and they're safe. And I shared that with a lot of folks. And in fact, I shared it on the show that, I felt like I was reaching out for more than me, but I was like, it's got to be a crazy time when your phone's just blowing up and people are, concerned for you personally and your well-being.
And I happen to be down to like 12% battery too. So I was trying to reserve it for
calling the family.
We're doing okay.
Sure.
Because we didn't know how long we were going to be or report.
Yeah. We've got a caller, so let's see if there's a question. If there's a question for you. Good morning, Wade and Carter Show. Hey, Adam, how are you? You have a question for Congressman Cloud? Okay.
Here.
Hold on. We'll give him some headphones so he can hear the question.
Hear those. I give him my headphones.
Okay. Okay. He's got headphones on. We're good to go. Okay. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate the call.
Thanks, Adam. That's a very fair question. I will say, here's what I had said. I said there is enough, since Election Day, there's been enough evidence to warrant an investigation. That's how I've been careful to word it. You look at the anomalies, you look at witness testimony, and yesterday there was presented 1,000 pages of witness testimony just in the first 5 minutes of debate.
We talked about the affidavits and all the people that are willing to go to jail for perjury who say this is what happened.
And so the week of, I sent a letter to the Department of Justice, to AG Barr, saying there's clear evidence that should hurt people's interest. You know, we should be interested. Let's find out if it's true or not. We don't know. I mean, most of us reps weren't in the room when they were counting, you know, so.
But it's certainly enough to not pass the smell test from your perspective.
Yeah, exactly. There's enough credible questions. So let's look into it. They did very little to follow up. And so maybe 10 days later, we sent another letter to AG Barr saying, we have a shocking lack of action on this, but you talk to the people who submitted affidavits, the FBI never followed up on them. If they did, they, you know, kind of went through the form of taking a testimony, but never really following up. And so these are people who either they're right or they committed perjury, you know, so
it matters.
It matters. And so we have seen very little effort to look into this to this date. And so yesterday was really going to be the first time to kind of present to the American people some of the story. Now, when it comes to January 6th, ideally, this is supposed to be taken care of way before January 6th. You know, I mean, it's supposed to be state legislatures taking care of, and the Constitution does provide for us to look into this. And it's something I wait for weeks and studied and about what our constitutional obligation is, and frankly, what the limited authorities that we have were. And finally, you know, I had the big question of, and I'll say in my decisions on the votes, I put aside the fraud and looked strictly at Constitution. Because to me, the measure of fraud would have been hard to be consistent with, because there's always some level of fraud in an election. So if that's going to be the justification for your vote, you put that at 1%, 5%, 10%, you know, and right now there's just not enough clear information because of lack of effort to be able to measure that. So for me, I looked at states of the contested states, I should say, because there were a number of states that this was an issue, but of the contested states, which states superseded their constitutional authority in changing election law leading up to the election.
Like Pennsylvania.
Right. And so that's where I limited the scope to. You know, even a Supreme Court case in 2000, it wasn't the big final case, but a case the week before talked about the fact that states who change their election law may cause Congress to be concerned about that and raise objection on January 6th. So there's a clear constitutional case from a judiciary standpoint, but one of the most compelling things to me was in the very first election after George Washington, we have John Adams presiding over what would eventually be his own election. And there was a issue with the electoral ballots that came from Vermont. And the intention was clear, but they weren't, the certification letter wasn't in order, really. I mean, it was the Constitution laid out exactly what they needed to have on it, but it wasn't. But Thomas Jefferson sent a letter saying to John, or he sent a letter to James Madison saying, please don't object to the state, go ahead and let it pass, which to me gave a clear, because it didn't matter what I thought the 12th Amendment said or what the Constitution said, as much as what I thought those guys probably knew what the original intent was more than I did. And if they understood that phraseology had within it an intent of the or.
So what year would that have been? Like
1800s.
So think about this. Bernie Sanders was just a rookie.
It's always Vermont. There's always something with Vermont.
Maple syrup and tourism.
But I guess to the second part, because Adam also posed this question here, what happens if we find out, because I mean, this went to the Supreme Court. I'm not going to get into the details of how they ruled with the lawsuit with Texas, but say that if an investigation happens, we find something out, what happens, or I guess the frustration that I'm sensing is, how do you fix the laws if they're broken if you're not getting courts and others to do their due diligence, or I guess that's the problem. How do you fix a broken system if the system itself won't fix itself?
Right.
If I've worded that somewhat correctly.
Well, and that's the challenging point we are as a nation, and why I'm grieved at what we've been saying, because these are very challenging times for the very reasons that people across the board haven't stepped up. And this is why elections matter. This is why for decades now I've been talking about the fact that something's required of all of us as citizens to be involved, because we certainly have our obligation in Congress to do it, but we do not have all power, and we need people in the states working with state legislatures because, like we said, ideally we should have people in state legislatures going to special session, and some, I will say, did call on their governor to.
Yeah.
There would be governor who did want to bring them back and actually address it. So there was definitely an attempt by some, but elections do matter. And,
but if there's fraud, do they matter, or does your effort matter if fraudulent activity is taking place to either cancel out your vote, or, as some have alleged and tried to, they use a software program to flip your vote? That's an interesting conundrum.
Yeah, it's challenging.
And how do you fix that without resorting to the violence and a revolution?
Well, leading up to, even before one vote's cast, we've seen the IRS target conservatives. We've seen the Department of Justice conspire to push forth what we now know as a false Russian
dossier.
Right.
Yeah.
The failure of FISA courts, which were supposed to be a line of defense, the intelligence agencies, our intelligence committee mobilized in Congress to, so we've seen tremendous failure in our institutions, and so the American people are extremely frustrated right now. Getting back to the Capitol, though, the best evidence that we have after talking to people who were there and the police is that there were different groups of people there. Even looking at the video, you can see people walking through the Capitol, and some look more like tourists.
Yeah,
right.
That was the C-SPAN video I was watching when I first heard a headline.
And then,
People storm the Capitol, and
Yeah.
there's people walking through the velvet ropes like they're on a tour.
Liberty under
Right,
siege.
still respecting the stanchions. Now, that's not right, and they should not have been there. But that's different than the police officer say. There was a clear distinction. There were people who had evil in their eyes as well.
Yes, sir.
Talking to the people who were at the rallies, they said that you could tell the difference. There's some people who showed up, and I'm just telling what I've heard, because obviously I was, like I said, locked in a room. But these people were saying, these people showed up at the first rally over at the White House. They were ready. They had helmets on. They had body armor. And everybody knew who they were. At least, with that one, they're saying they're like, those guys are here to cause trouble. We want to have us be able to peacefully assemble.
My guesstimate is, and I think it's a conservative figure, based on the people that voted and the number of votes that were cast and on what I've been reading, my guesstimate is there's probably 50 million people in this country who voted, who are to some degree concerned about the integrity of the election and how things went. Some of those people of that 50 million are tremendously outraged, and some are just like, well, something doesn't smell right. There's enough smoke, there's got to be fire. Nobody more so, though, than President Trump, who is absolutely convinced that he was conspired against by insiders and that the election was stolen from him, with the same adamance that Hillary Clinton used in the prior election. So you look at it and you say, it's got to be very difficult for the president, who, narcissist or not, believes he's on the right track, believes he's performing the will of the American people, believes in his administration. I don't fault him for not going quietly. But how much of what happened the other day was, if not incited by the president, at least and not even encouraged by the president, it wasn't squashed when it was predictable that it could happen. You know, I mean, did you feel that? Do you get that sense from any of your colleagues? That, like, well, the president really should have said, we won't have any violence. He did come out afterwards, respect the blue, don't, no violence.
Please go home.
Please go home. I mean, I feel bad for the guy, because if we believe that there's enough smoke to look for a fire, he's convinced that the White House is on fire.
Yeah, and we can look back and remember that Hillary Clinton's one who said never, 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 no matter what happens to seat or
Concede, yeah.
See, yeah.
Yeah.
300 lawsuits, I think, filed in 2016, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it?
I will say that I think the expectations of what could happen on January 6th were raised to an unreasonable level. And even as a representative, I mean, I felt the constitutional obligation to do what I did that day and to bring questions to some areas, but so I knew we would walk through the process, and I was going to do my job to walk through the process on it. But
were you hearing any chatter that things could get ugly on January 6th at the Capitol?
There were rumors going around.
I mean, we knew there were going to be people going.
There were rumors going around the Capitol, and they're rumors, okay, and then that's all the credence I'm giving to it. I don't know yet. We probably won't know for some time, after investigations are made, that Antifa was going to be showing up in Trump gear. So
seen those rumors and heard those rumors.
We had heard those rumors. So in a mass crowd of, I don't even know if you have a number of how many people were there. And again, I wasn't out there to know, but I imagine there were tens of thousands, if not hundreds.
And I've heard some things even this morning coming in from people who were there that, now looking back, felt that they just got caught up in sort of the mob mentality and swept along with things, right? They weren't the first ones over the wall and through the barricades.
Talking to people who were there seemed to be professional agitators who showed up. They showed up prepared. They were equipped. They've done this before.
I believe that.
There's actually photo evidence of people at different rallies that seem to say this person seemed to be in this city on this side of the country and here that showed up. And then there are others who were there who should not have, like ducklings, gone along with it, but didn't show up with evil intent. In the high emotion of the moment.
I have a good question based on your stack of evidence or affidavits and what have you. Justin Switalski asks, how do you just went to bat to have an injustice reviewed, and it seems they swept it under the rug. How does that get fixed?
This is what's very challenging right now. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. What I'm saying is I'm in the fight to try to fix it. We tried to call on the AG to get the Department of Justice moving, but again, even as with the Georgia election, as we would hear of things happening and evidence, rumors of evidence being destroyed, the Justice Department still oftentimes will not send people to investigate it, and it's difficult.
Tell people your website. I know we had Cloud for Congress, but where is it now? What's the where to go?
There's a distinction between campaign.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Where can we go to follow your day to day?
The day to day. That's the campaign site. Still is. Still will be. I would encourage people. We send out a weekly newsletter from our congressional side. We keep those distinctly. So if you want to follow one, you need to sign up for both. The information's not shared across.
Right.
If you go to cloud.house.gov, you can sign up for our newsletter. We send weekly updates. Usually it's one email a week. We're not there spamming you or anything. It's very this is what we've worked on.
I get that, and I was going to applaud you because the word transparent is extremely overused, and it's gotten to where it's almost like a.
It's almost like a code for, oops, we lied. So now we've got to show you that we aren't going to lie any further.
What your newsletter does a really good job of, like this last week, I saw pictures of you signing the letters of objection. And it lets people understand where you stand in a very succinct, easy to understand. It's an easy read. It's not all gobbledygook. You don't just mention, Section 1, number 3, C. It's all that. There's a lot of good data in there for the average guy like me to read and understand what's going on your behalf in Congress. And I know that I'm not naive enough to believe that you handwrite that thing by yourself. And I wanted to applaud you and your staff for the job that they do, because it does let you know a lot of the stuff that we've talked about is mentioned in that newsletter. It's there. If you go read it, it's there. So good job.
Well, thank you.
Heard Rand Paul, Senator Paul, talk about working with states to fix laws and such. And I've heard others say, well, does that really matter if they're just going to circumvent them in the end, or if conditions change? But that's what I think a lot of people want to know. How do we work together? And I understand the constitutional responsibilities as they were doled out to the states, but how do we get to a better place where the people can trust the voting system? Again, is do we go back to paper ballots? Do we need an ID? Do we get rid of mail-in ballots? I mean, and how do we make it so that, all states are sort of following similar processes and procedures, so that, well, we're just going to shut down the count here at 8:00 at night, and then all of a sudden, somewhere along the way, a bunch of votes, seem to appear? Or why do some states keep counting until there's no ballots left, and others say, well, we're going to shut it down, and even if nothing happens, the appearance that something could happen is there?
Right. Yeah, a good look at the right way to do this is Florida. We all remember 2000 hanging chads. We're counting things for weeks. We're recounting. It's crazy. I can't imagine how many. There's way too many elections going on that we find ballots 2 weeks later. Oh, there's a House race right now. Oh, we're 6 votes apart. And we just found some ballots in a drawer somewhere. Literally, I mean, this isn't hyperbole. This is literally what they're saying. That kind of stuff has got.
Florida's got it going on. They've done a good job of like
Florida,
this. Mark Gates and the is it Gates? What's the other?
Matt Gaetz.
Matt Gaetz, thank you. His brother Mark is the one that I know. Matt Gaetz and the governor of Florida too is extremely sharp. I think they're doing a really fine job over there.
They did a good job of taking what was a bad situation and putting in a lot of safeguards. Like they count the mail-in ballots first, because that's the most susceptible to fraud. And then right now we have the question of, we're counting election day votes, and then we know how many votes we need to get in, and whether or not there's fraud or not in that, it leaves it suspect.
Right.
To where if you count the mail-in ballots first, that we have a finite number left to count, and once we finish that, it's done.
That's it.
But when you're starting an election and you can't say this is the number of ballots that we know are here that we're going to count, and therefore at the end of the day that should be evenly divided among the candidates. That's a problem. It's going to be a very important discussion to have, and I'll say up till this election, it's been a bipartisan issue. There's been Democrats write reports on it. There's
an abyss between the two sides of your aisle. There's the gap between the squad and the Republicans has just really grown over the last 2 years.
A lot of that has to do with the leadership we're seeing in the House. It's intentionally
divisive.
Yeah, honestly, and we were all quarantined in the same room. And I'll say that, one member, a Democratic member, had his son tragically pass away over the weekend. As just, my heart breaks for that. I mean, no parent should have to see their child pass before them. And it's heartbreaking. And then those, when we're evacuating, it's not his kids were actually separated at the moment from him because we were in the House chamber. And, we were all concerned about, let's get his family back together.
Yeah.
But, it wasn't.
Right. At the end of the day, you're all people. And I know you, if anybody that we would know would try to reach across an aisle, I know it would be you. This is a leadership opportunity for you. And I think you're doing a great job.
Yeah. Thanks. What's unfortunate is the leadership we have in place, like leaves, even in the machinery of how we operate, like intentionally puts things in place that so you have to be very intentional to build those relationships and to talk about this kind of thing.
We're running overtime, but we had a caller earlier, Pete Montana, who's a radio host in Canada and a friend of mine, and kind of gave us a bit of the Canadian perspective. And Is a third part is a third party coming to the system? That seems to be what Canadians were sort of hearing. Do you see that is that somewhere? Is that now maybe a viable option? But where does it, does it fit, or is there room for a third party to
There's so
help the
much
system?
money. It just takes so much money to run for office at the highest levels that I don't see how you do it unless, Bezos wants to.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have insights into
The Amazon party.
to that. I will say originally George Rock talked about the fact ideally we wouldn't have any political parties. To me, if we definitely were going to have them, it'd be better to have 20 of them.
Right.
In a sense.
Vote for the best person with the best ideas.
Yeah, and then you build coalitions based on where you have different interests or different stances on different issues.
But we're not. I mean, that used to happen. Now it doesn't seem to.
Yeah. For me, I focus on what's the best way I can make a difference in the environment.
I'll tell you that if there's 50 comments over here, 40 of them say great job, and 30 of them say term limits.
Yeah.
30 of them are people clamoring for term limits, and I think there's got to be a way to limit the spending on elections. I mean, because it becomes the machine itself, the machine of the Democratic Party, the idea, and the Republicans are no different. I get, honestly, 100 emails a week from Donald Trump or his son, Junior, or Ivanka. I mean, I do. I get 100 emails a week. We need your help.
Well,
we still need your help.
Which email address?
Right. WayneCarter.com.
Well, and when
you know how to find us.
When you hear, $346 million for a Georgia congressional race.
Yeah. Well,
it just seems.
I mean, right now we don't know where a lot of the money's coming from either, and it's a mess.
China.
Well, Congressman, we appreciate it. We're over time. I know Ralph and
Always.
Brother Gary are chomping at the bit, but really appreciate you coming in this morning. I know it's been a crazy week, and I can't imagine how exhausted you are emotionally and physically and mentally. So we appreciate you getting up early and making time for us. Thank you very much.
Real quick, while you're here, just some of your constituents that make this possible. Razor IT Solutions, JP Hull and his team will work for you. Went Services, Carl Went and his family, Aaron Went. They do a great job. Local business, local family. And then USA Concrete Coatings, 578 Home. Reach out to Charlie Garcia. And if you're going to have a party, your next big event, you want to contract with Cheryl, 920-6803. The Gray Barn will design your next event and make it worth remembering. There you go.
Thank you, sir.
So
Appreciate your
thanks for
time.
being with
Thanks
us.
for stopping by.
We appreciate you. We'll meet you in the green room. Go say hi to Brother Gary. He's been waiting for you. Thank you, sir.
And we appreciate all you that tuned in, and we'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Yes, sir. God bless.
Till then.
All right. Bye, folks.
Bye, folks.